Banjo-Kazooie, one of the most cherished games of the early 3D era. With fantastic songs such as this one, Freezeezy Peak, Grant Kirkhope proved his absolute mastery over melody embellishment. I dare say that there are no pretenders to this throne, nothing that can come close to the mind-numbing but blissful repetition, nothing that on a simple and straightforward level could ever possibly We'll get back to this later. Battletoads is perhaps video game's greatest setup to a joke without a punchline, since Duke Nukem Forever failed to get a laugh when it finally arrived. Going over 20 years without a new game in the series, this cartoonish Ninja Turtles copy has gained recent notoriety for cameo appearances in Killer Instinct and Shovel Knight on the Xbox One. Past that, the original NES game is known for its legendary difficulty, and the greatest claim to its name today is that it's still a joke to call up your local GameStop and ask to pre-order Battletoads. Still, many will be surprised to learn that in its short lifespan of about 4 years, the Battletoads series managed to spawn 5 different games, with at least 3 tolerable entries. All of them followed the beat-em-up formula, and all of them were headed musically by Rare's legendary composer, David Wise. All of these games would be finished before Wise's breakout composition role in the Donkey Kong Country games, so how did the soundtrack stack up? Let's get wordy and find out. Wise is known mainly for his ability to create incredibly ambient music. The Game Boy lacks the ability to do this properly due to its far more limited sound chip comparative to the SNES. A lot of Game Boy music sounds incredibly similar, its only distinguishing features being how well differentiated the bass instrument and the main instrument are, and melodic choices. The 6th stage of Battletoads for the Game Boy, Turbo Cables, stands as an excellent contrast to that. The opening breakdown is incredibly varied in tone, sounds panning right and left in order to give the song a depth that honestly be very hard to appreciate on the original hardware. From there, you get a really swanky and upbeat tune with some excellent rockabilly inspiration in beat and tone. Honestly, the only thing holding the song back is its relatively short length. It's got great progression, keeps a solid beat, and is just begging for a sweet remix. However, this would be just a precursor to what David Wise would really be capable of. Also, congratulations to Turbo Cables for being the first actual chiptune on Chiptuned. Of space action themes, this one ranks among my favorites. Battletoads and Double Dragon, the ultimate team, may not have done the best job of blending 2 classic beat-em-up universes together. Seriously, the brothers Lee are blatantly better than the Toads, dragging kicks for days. But the build to this radical outer space adventure song for the 5th stage of their crossover game is just plain rockin'. You can begin to see Wise's experimentation with instruments that would become well integrated into the Donkey Kong Country series, with synth samples and xylophone-like percussion sneaking their way into the background to add a sense of depth and otherworldliness to the song. However, the main attraction are the 2 guitars here, the rough, grungy, electric, and the high-octane rock guitar. Both contrast the remainder of the instruments other than the drum beat to such an overwhelming extent, and then create a solid juxtaposition between each other. The lower guitar sets up the higher notes perfectly, the rock guitar's wailing chords seeming to echo and sound off like sirens. It's a solid, head-bopping, high-octane song from the word go, with just enough under the hood to have meat to sink your teeth into. And now we've reached the period of David Wise's true calling as a composer. A masterful mix of atmosphere, ambient noise, and complex instrumentation to make an utterly exceptional piece. For all of the foundations that the previous tracks laid down, the introduction section to Turbo Cables, the dissonance and contrast of Missile Mayhem, the catchiness of stuff like the original game's Pause theme, the Dark Queen's battleship grows and fosters the sound into something truly unique. Something truly organic. Something that can be attributed to one of Rare's absolute greats. It's easy to hear just how the song slowly, almost humbly begins. The constant mechanical sound reminding the player of the hostile enemy territory they're in. The foreboding way the distorted horn and the synth mix their way in with the rest of the music. And then, a quiet before the storm. A string instrument providing a very simple progression before an action-filled swing section brings the beat-em-up nature of the game to light, creating a sense of heroism piercing through the unease. Finally, a peaceful remix of the previous calming bridge brings us back to our loop. The entire song feels like it's constantly in a state of flux, instruments changing, dropping in and out at the tip of the hat, but all setting up the next section wonderfully. Only the mechanical sounds remain a constant, unifying, keeping the player's focus, never once relenting and keeping the track's many deviations of its core on pace, or keeping it out of being proper backing for a beat-em-up. The loop itself is relatively short, and Wise would eventually grow to build even greater songs. But this stage theme is proof positive of the potential that he would soon achieve with his later soundtracks, and is a shining star amongst the Battletoads songs. Just as the Battletoads themselves are a sign of progression for Rare as a company, so too can their soundtracks be seen as a progression for their composer. Limited by the repetitive nature of beat-em-ups, short loops, and the rock and the Ninja Turtles-inspired theme, Battletoads songs tend not to be the absolute catchiest, but instead feel emblematic of their levels and the time period they represent. The Battletoads are a relic of the late 80s, early 90s, and everything from their design to their music to their gameplay reflects that. Should the Battletoads ever come racing back, giant rats, speeder bikes, labyrinthine snakes, and scantily clad queens in tow? Well, I could see them getting some HD re-releases down the line. Certainly the soundtracks would benefit from richer fidelity and actual instrumentation to play with, but personally, I feel like they could be regarded just as they are. Fun legends of the industry, whose legacy often precedes their actual quality. Battletoads is just plain fun and enjoyable, sticking to a theme and hammering it in hard. I feel like we've gotten what we can without tiring the concept, and their current roles as cameo vanguards for the Xbox and Microsoft Legacy characters suits them perfectly. Their sounds, their songs, their games live on as legacy, in a way that's hard for something like a remake or a sequel to touch, and that's what Battletoads will remain for me. In character and in soundtrack. Not the greatest, but always something to hold fondly and cherish the legacy of. And pretty radical, mondo, outrageous, other Super Mario World level things. I'm Pyrrhickong, And until next time, I'll keep chipping away at some tunes.